Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Cesar Gavidia, and we're going to talk about one of Cesar's success cases against Principal Financial Disability Insurance Company. And Cesar, in these types of cases, we talk about the background, we talk about what you were able to do, and then provide some tips that could help people that have a Principal Financial short or long-term disability insurance claim. And this was a real interesting case. There's a lot going on. So let's get on to the background. A little bit about the claimant in this particular case, and then we'll talk about all the other things that you were able to achieve for the claimant.
So our client in this case was an employment litigation attorney working for a big firm in California. And doing a lot of the same or similar things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So we're really, familiar with her occupational duties, obviously. She'd actually managed to submit to her disability insurer her application and go on, submit her claim to them and get approved on her own initially, and had reached out to us when she started having some issues. And what had essentially caused her to stop working was she was really young, in her 30s, already had to have an anterior cervical disc fusion, and at 2 levels, C4, C5, C5, C6. So a pretty serious surgery. Continued to have a lot of problems, and particularly chronic pain. Subsequently, really not able to function effectively as a lawyer anymore, especially for the types of clients she was representing and defending. So when she filed for a disability claim, she was approved and she was paid along. And then suddenly one day she's informed that principal's doing a medical review. They want to conduct an independent medical exam on her. And she reached out to us, not really sure what was going on, why they wanted to suddenly do this examination. And it turned out that essentially principal was operating under the idea that the definition of disability in her disability insurance policy that she had through her employer, as an employer-sponsored disability plan, that it was changing to basically an any occupation definition of disability. And that's a really important point or transition when it does occur, but in her particular case, in her policy, they were incorrect. There was no change in definition. In fact, as an attorney, and at this level or status level she was at her law firm, she was covered for own occupation essentially through the life of the policy. So there was some, when we got involved and we were writing to the insurance company, informing them how this was incorrect, showing them the sections of the policy that applied to her. They relented and reviewed it and said, yeah, you're right. There is no change in definition, but we want to do a review anyways. So this was in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And what was interesting here is where she lived, there were stay-at-home orders. And there was essentially you couldn't leave your home unless it was medically necessary to leave your home, or you were an essential employee and you were going to work or something like that. And we argued that really an independent medical exam where she's traveling to some foreign doctor's office that she's not familiar with, where there may be other patients there, where you don't know who is exposed to what, really was unreasonable and didn't fit that requirement within the stay-at-home orders. And they relented again, and they said, well, we'll put off the IME for now. And in that time, she was also approved for Social Security disability. So a very young person, which we see a lot of cases, a lot of claims, unless you're at a real serious level of disability, you usually don't see that. But in her case, she was approved for Social Security disability in that meantime as well.
So did there come a point in time where they attempted to deny her benefits?
Well, it really, thankfully we've been able to prevent that. She hasn't been denied, and that's also one of those critical parts of what we do, because once you get to a point of denial and of interruption, this could be horribly challenging and a major interruption in your life when your disability benefits stop, when this income stops. So we were able to function in a role that we were preventing that from happening.
So she hired you after initially getting approved and then wanted you to provide claim handling services to be the voice for her claim.
Well, like most of us, as lawyers, we like to stay in our lane. We know what we do, and we stay within our lane. We kind of work within our area of focus and specialty. And she was an employment lawyer. She wasn't an ERISA lawyer. She wasn't a disability insurance lawyer. She knew that dealing with this insurance company was outside of her lane, and she needed to to speak to somebody or to be represented by someone who had that experience, and that's why she came to us.
How do you continue to work with her now to make sure her benefits continue for as long as she needs them?
So at least as of recent, she doesn't have any issues in terms of going to her doctor. She's on a very strict and frequent visit schedule with her pain management doctors, with her chiropractors, and with all of the people all the specialists and treatment providers that she sees. So she's very diligent, very good about that. And we always want to continue that, because once there's any sort of lapse in that, or you haven't seen a doctor in 6 months or longer, you're really risking quite a bit, because first, you could be potentially putting yourself at risk with your benefits in not fitting the reasonable care standard of your disability policy. That's a very easy way for an insurance company to say you're not entitled to benefits. You don't meet the definition of disability here because you're not under the reasonable care. You're not treating as often enough as you should be to qualify as a disability.
And then how do you help with her attending physician statements and making sure all the medical records are correct?
So you never want to have any of these things done in haste. You don't want to be caught by the insurance company sending you forms and then suddenly saying, well, we need these back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Because doctors are extremely busy. They've got their practice that they're tending to, the patients that they're seeing. They usually have a book schedule. If you're seeing doctors that are sought after and they're highly trained, highly specialized for the conditions that they're seeing you for, you may not even be able to book an appointment with that doctor for months down the road. So we want to make sure that we're working in conjunction with your doctors, together with making sure that these forms are getting, before they even ask for them, having perhaps these completed as often as you're seeing them. And what we recommend is no less than every 2 to 3 months. Going in and see your doctors, have these forms completed, so that when the insurance company does come calling, you've already got the most recent forms completed.
Right, and I know also you talked to the client about keeping a daily pain or symptom log, and why is that important?
Well, it's critical because during this time that you're not seeing your doctors, you're obviously having these, especially in chronic conditions, you're experiencing these symptoms with frequency. And it's important to log how often you're experiencing the symptoms, the intensity that you're experiencing, any activities that you're doing that are perhaps bringing these symptoms on or exacerbating these symptoms. And then you can present those to your doctor and you can explain that this is how often things are occurring. They may have to change some of the treatment that they're providing you with or therapy that they're giving you. It also shows, especially when insurance companies are often defending their liability in a disability claim and saying that your complaints or the evidence here is purely subjective. There's nothing objective showing that there's any correlation between what's happening to you and the complaints you're experiencing. Well, there's a lot of credibility when you have these logs and you're presenting these logs to your doctors and they're being incorporated within your medical records, and then your doctors are adjusting their treatment of you based on the symptoms that you're experiencing. And they're in your records, because it's so often that insurance companies are reviewing your records and saying there's no documentation of these complaints that you say you're having.
Right, and so it's great preparation to have that log, even if down the road you have to send it to the disability insurance company. So, this was a high stakes claim because the claimant was making hundreds of thousands of dollars, so the benefit was a very high dollar benefit, and it's anticipated that while during the pandemic you were able to push them away from the IME, that it's not surprising if in the very near future they're going to try to potentially want to do this again.
Well, it's been this back and forth. We also expressed that she was just approved for Social Security disability. What else do you want? I mean, there was an independent exam done there. It's a very credible exam. The response from principal was essentially that, well, although we recognize and acknowledge she was approved for Social Security disability, that does not guarantee her for benefits. Our response to that was, you're in the Ninth Circuit. Within the Ninth Circuit, there's a heavy presumption of disability, even within your own disability policy. When someone's found to be disabled under the Social Security disability standard, it's a very weighty, very big standard to meet.
All right, and so I know you'll keep with the strong medical records and hopefully keep that from happening, but if it does happen, you'll be prepared, the client's prepared, and hopefully it will not be an interruption in the benefits. So if you're someone who has a principal financial short or long-term disability insurance claim, whether it's provided by your employer or a policy that you bought on your own from an agent, feel free to call Cesar, myself, any of our disability lawyers. We'll provide you with an immediate free phone consultation. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.